Chapter 17 of The Worm Ouroboros. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jason Mills. The Worm Ouroboros by E.R. Eddison. Chapter 17. The King flies his Haggard. How the Lady Presmira came to the King on an errand of state, and how she prospered therein. Wherein is also seen why the King would send the Duke Corsus into Demonland, and how on the 15th day of July these lords, Corsus, Laxus, Gro, and Galandus, sailed with a fleet from Tenemos. On the morn came the Lady Presmira to pray audience of the King, and being admitted to his private chamber, stood before him in great beauty and splendour, saying, Lord, I came to thank you, as occasion served not for me fitly so to do last night in the banquet hall. Sure it is no easy task, since when I thank you as I would, I must seem too unmindful of Coron's deserving, who hath won this kingdom. But if I speak too large of that, I shall seem to minish your bounty, O King, and ingratitude is a vice aboard. Madam, said the King, thou needest not to thank me, and to mine ears great deeds have their own trumpets. So now she told him of her letters received from Coron out of Impland. It is well seen, Lord, said she, how in these days you do beat down all peoples under you, and do set up new tributary kings to add to your great praise in Carse. O King, how long must this ill weed of Demonland offend us, going still untrodden under feet? The King answered her not a word. Only his lip showed a gleam of teeth, as of a tiger's troubled at his meal. But Presmira said, with great hardiness, Lord, be not angry with me. Methinks it is the part of a faithful servant, honoured by his master, to seek new service. And where lieth likelier service Coron should do you, than west overseas, to lead presently an army naval thither, and make an end of them, ere their greatness stand up again from the blow wherewith last May you did strike them? Madam, said the King, this charge is mine. I'll tell thee when I need thy counsel, which is not now. And standing up as if to end the matter, he said, I do intend some sport to-day. They tell me thou hast a falcon gentle, towereth so well she passeth the best Corineus hath. 'Tis clear calm weather. Wilt thou take her out to-day, and show us the mounty at a heron? She answered, Joyfully, O King. Yet I beseech you add this favour to all your former goodness, to hear me yet one word. Something persuades me you have already determined of this enterprise, and by your putting of me off, I do fear your majesty meaneth not Coron shall undertake it, but some other. Dark and immovable as his own dark fortress facing the bright morning, Gerais the King stood and beheld her. Sunshine streaming through the eastern casement lighted red-gold smouldering splendours in the heavy coils of that lady's hair, and flew back in dazzling showers from the diamonds fastened among those coils. After a space he said, Suppose I am a gardener. I go not to the butterfly for counsel. Let her be glad that there be rose-trees there, and red stone-crops for her delight, which, if any be lacking, I'll give her more for the asking, as I'll give thee more masques and revels and all brave pleasures in Carse. But war and policy is not for women. You have forgot, O King, said the Lady Presmira, Coron made me his ambassador. But seeing a blackness fall upon the King's countenance, she said in haste, But not in all, O King. I will be open as day to you. The expedition he strongly urged, but not for himself the leading on't. The King looked evilly upon her. I am glad to hear it, he said. Then, his brow clearing, Know thou it for thy good, madam, order is ta'en for this already. Ere winter nights return again, Demonland shall be my footstool. Therefore write to thy lord, I gave him his wish beforehand. Presmira's eyes danced triumph. Oh, the glad day, she cried. Mine also, O King? If thine be his, said the King. Ah, said she, you know mine outgallops it. Then school thine, madam, said the King, to run in harness. Why think'st thou I sent Coron into Impland, but that I knew he had excellent wit and noble courage to govern a great kingdom? Wouldst have me a wilful child snatch Impland from him like a sampler half-stitched? Then, taking leave of her with more gracious courtesy, We shall look to see thee, then, madam, at the 3rd hour before noon, he said, and smote on a gong, summoning the captain of his guard. Soldier, he said, conduct the Queen of Impland, and bid the Duke Corsus straight attend me. The 3rd hour before noon the Lord Gro met with Presmira in the gate of the inner court. She had a riding habit of dark green tiffany, and a narrow ruff edged with margery pearls. She said, Thou comest with us, my lord? Surely I am beholden to thee. I know thou lovest not the sport, Yet to save me from Corineus I must have thee. He plagueth me much this morning with strange courtesies, though why thus on a sudden I cannot tell. In this, said Lord Grow, as in greater matters, I am thy servant, O Queen. 'Tis yet time enough, though. This half hour the king will not be ready. I left him closeted with Corsus, that setteth presently about his arming against the demons. Thou hast heard? Am I deaf, said Presmira, to a bell clangeth through all Corsi? Alas, said Grow, that we waked too long last night, and lay too long abed i' the morning. Presmira answered, That did not I, and yet I'm angry with myself now that I did not so. How? Thou sawest the king before the council? She bent her head for yes. And he nay said thee? With infinite patience, said she, but most irrevocably. My lord must hold by implant till it be well brought to the saddle. And truly when I think on't, there's reason in that. Grow said, Thou takest it, madam, with that clear brow of nobleness and reason I had looked for in thee. She laughed. I have the main of my desire, if Demonland shall be put down. Natheless, it maketh a great wonder the king picketh for this work so rude a bludgeon, when so many goodly blades lie ready to his hand. Behold but his armoury. For, standing in the gateway at the head of the steep descent to the river, they beheld where the lords of Witchland were met beyond the bridge-gate, to ride forth to the hawking. And Presmira said, Is it not brave, my lord Grow, to dwell in Corsi? Is it not passing brave to be in Corsi, that lordeth it over all the earth? Now came they down, and by the bridge to the Way of Kings, to meet with them on the open mead on the left bank of Druima. Presmira said to Laxus, that rode on a black gelding full of silver hares, I see thou hast thy goshawks forth to-day, my lord. Ay, madam, said he, there is not a stronger hawk than these. Withal they are very fierce and crabbed, and I must keep them private, lest they slay all other sort. Sriva, that was by, put forth a hand to stroke them. Truly, she said, I love them well, thy goshawks. They be stout and kingly. And she laughed, and said, Truly to-day I look not lower than on a king. Thou mayst look on me, then, said Laxus, albeit I bear not my crown i' the field. 'Tis therefore I'll mark thee not, said she. Laxus said to Presmira, Wilt thou not praise my hawks, O queen? I praise them, answered she, circumspectly, for methinks they fit thy temper better than mine. These be good hawks, my lord, for flying at the bush. I am for the high mountee. Her stepson Hemming, black-browed and sullen-eyed, laughed in his throat, knowing she mocked and thought on Demonland. Meanwhile Corineus, mounted on a great white leard like silver, with black ear-tips, mane and tail and all 4 feet black as coal, drew up to the Lady Sriva, and spoke with her apart, saying secretly, so that none but she might hear, Next time thou shalt not carry it so, but I will have thee when and where I would. Thou mayst gull the devil with thy perfidiousness, but not me a second time, thou lying, cozening vixen. She answered softly, Beastly man, I did perform the very article of mine oath, and left thee an open door last night. If thou didst look to find me within, that were beyond aught I promised. And know for that I'll seek a greater than thou, and a nicer to my liking, one less ready to swap each kitchen slut on the lips. I know thy practice, my lord, and thy conditions. His face flamed red. Were that my custom, I'd now amend it. Thou art so true a runt of their same litter, they shall all be loathly to me as thou art loathly. Mew, said she, wittily spoke, i' faith, and right in the manner of a common horseboy, which indeed thou art. Corineus struck spurs into his horse, so that it bounded aloft, then cried out and said to Presmira, Incomparable lady, I shall show thee my new horse, what rounds, what bounds, what stop he makes i' the full course of the gallop galliard. And therewith, trotting up to her, made his horse fetch a close turn in a flying manner upon one foot, and so away, rising to a racking pace, an amble, and thence, after some double turns, returning at the gallop and coming to a full stop by Presmira. "'Tis very pretty, my lord," said she, "yet I would not be thy horse." "So, madam," he cried, "thy reason?" "Why," said she, "were I the most temperate, strongest, and of the gentlest nature i' the world, of the heat of the ginger, most swift to all high curvets and caprioles, I'd fear my crest should fall i' the end, tired with thy spur-galling." Whereat the Lady Sriva fell a-laughing. Now came Geraint the king among them, with his ostringers and falconers, and his huntsmen with setters and spaniels, and great fierce boar-hounds drawn in a string. He rode upon a black mare with eyes fire-red, so tall a tall man's head scarce topped her withers. He wore a leather gauntlet on his right hand, on the wrist thereof an eagle sat, hooded and motionless, gripping with her claws. He said, "It is met. Courses go not with us. I fly him at higher game. His sons attend him, losing not an hour in preparation for this journey. The rest take pleasure in the chase." So they praised the king, and rode forth with him east-away. The lady Sriva whispered Corineus in the ear, "Enchantery, my lord, ruleth in Courcy, and this it must be bringeth it about that none may see nor touch me twixt midnight hour and cock-crow, save he that must be king in Demon-land." But Corineus made as not to hear her, turning toward the lady Presmira, that turned thence toward Groa. Sriva laughed. Merry of heart she seemed that day, eager as the small Merlin sitting on her fist, and willing at every turn to have speech with King Gerice. But the king heeded her not at all, and gave her not a look nor a word. So rode they a while, jesting and discoursing, toward the Pixie-land border, rousing herons by the way, whereat none made better sport than Presmira's falcons, flown from her fist at many hundred paces as the quarry rose, and mounting with it to the clouds, in corkscrew flights, ring upon ring, up and up till the fowl was but a speck in the upper sky, and her falcons 2 lesser specks beside it. But when they were come to the higher ground, and the scrub and underwood, then the king whistled his eagle off his fist. She flew from him as if she would never have turned head again, yet presently upon his shout came in. Then, soaring aloft, waited on above his head, till the hounds started a wolf out of the brake. Thereon she swooped sudden as a thunderbolt, and the king lighted down and helped her with his hunting-knife. And so again, thrice and 4 times, till 4 wolves were slain. And that was the greatest sport. The king made much of his eagle, giving her the last wolf's lights and liver to gorge herself withal. And he gave her over to his falconer, and said, "Ride we now into the flats of Armony, for I will fly my Haggard. My Haggard eagle caught this march in the hills of Lagos. Many a good night's rest hath she cost me, to wake her and man her, and teach her to know my call, and be obedient. I will fly her now at the big black boar of Lagos, that afflicteth the farmers hereabouts these 2 years past, and bringeth them death and loss. So shall we see good sport, if she be not too coy and wild." So the king's falconer brought the Haggard, and the king took her on his fist. A black eagle she was, red-beaked and glorious to look on. Her jesses were of red leather, with little silver varvels, whereon the crab of Witchland was engraved in small. Her hood was of red leather tasselled with silver. First she baited from the fist of the king, screaming and flapping her wings, but soon was quiet. And the king rode forth, sending his great brindled hounds before him to put up the boar, and all his company followed after. In no long time they roused the boar, that turned red-eyed and moody mad on the king's hounds, and charged among them, ripping up the foremost so that her bowels gushed out. The king unhooded his eagle, and flew her off his fist. But she, wild and ungentle, fastened not upon the boar, but on a hound that held him by the ear. She fixed her cruel claws in the hound's neck, and picked his eyes out, ere a man might speak 2 curses on her. Groa, that was by the king, muttered, "Oh, I like not that. 'Tis ominous." By then was the king ridden up, and thrust the boar through with his spear, piercing him above and a little behind the shoulder, so that the blade went through the heart of him, and he sank down dying in his blood. Then the king smote his eagle in his wrath with the butt of his spear-shaft, but smote her lightly and with a glancing blow, and away she flew and was lost to sight. And the king was angry, for all that the boar was slain, for the loss of his hound and his Haggard, and for her ill behaviour. So he bade his huntsman skin the boar, and bring home his skin to be a trophy, and so turned homeward. After a while the king called to him the Lord Groa to ride forward a little with him, and out of earshot of the rest. The king said to him, "Thou hast a discontented look. Is it that I send not Corund into Demon-land to crown the work he began at Eshgra Ogo? Thou babblest besides of omens." Groa answered, "My lord the king, pardon my fears. For omens indeed, 'tis oft as the soul saith, as the fool thinketh, so the bell blinketh. I spake in haste. Who shall weep fate from her determined purpose? But since you did name Corund's name—" "I named him," said the king, "because I am still ringing in the ears with women's talk, whereto also I doubt not thou art privy." "Only so much," answered he, "that this is my thought. He were our best, O king." "Haply so," said the king, "but wouldst have me therefore hold my stroke in the air, while occasion knocketh at the gate? I'll tell thee, I am potent in art magical, but scarce may I stay time's wing the while I fetch Corund out of Impland and pack him westaway." Groa held his peace. Well, said the king, I will hear more from thee. Lord, he answered, I like not courses. The king gave him a frump to his face. Grow held his peace again a while, but seeing the king would have more, he said, Since it likes your majesty to demand my counsel, I will speak. You know, lord, of all your men in Carse, Corineus is least my friend, and if I back him you will be little apt to think me moved by interest. In my clear judgment, if Corund be barred from this journey, as reason is I freely embrace it, he must bide in Impland, both to harvest there his victories, and to deny the road to Juss and Brandok de Har, if haply they return from the Maruna. And besides, time, as you most justly say, O king, calleth for speedy action. If he be barred, you have no better than Corineus, a complete soldier, a tried captain, young, fierce, and resolute, and one that sitteth not down again when once he standeth up, till that his will be accomplished. Send him to Demonland. No, said the king, I will not send Corineus. Hast thou not seen hawks that be in their prime, and full pride for beauty and goodness, but must be tamed ere they be flown at the quarry? Such an one is he, and I will tame him with harshness and duress till I be certain of him. Also I have sworn and told him, last year, when in his drunkenness he betrayed my counsel, and o'erset all our plans, broke me from Pixieland, and set my prisoners free, that Corund and Corsus and Laxus should be preferred and advanced before him, until by quiet service he shall purchase my good will again. Give then the glory to Corsus, but to Corineus the rude work on't for retiring. Send him as Corsus's secretary, and your work shall be better performed, O king. But the king said, No, thou art a fool to think he would receive it, that being in disgrace could not humble himself, but look bigger than before. And certainly I will not ask him, and so give him the glory to refuse it. My lord the king, said Gro, when I said unto you, I like not Corsus, you did scoff. Yet 'tis no simple niceness made me say it, but because I do fear he shall prove a false cloth. He will shrink in the wetting, and can abide no trial. By the blight of Sathanas, said the king, what crazy talk is this? Hast forgot the ghouls 12 years ago? True, thou wast not here, and yet what skills it, when the fame hath gone back and forth through all the world of their great spill, when which land stood in the greatest strait that ever she stood, and more than any other Corsus was to praise for our delivering. And since then, 5 years later, when he held Harquim against Goldri Blusco, and made him at last to give over the siege and go home most ingloriously, and else had all the Cibrian coast been the demon's appanage, not ours. Gro bowed his head, having naught to say. The king was silent a while, then bared his teeth. When I would burn mine enemy's house, he said, I choose me a good brand, full of pitch and rosin, apt to sputter well i' the fire and fry them. Such an one is Corsus, since he fared to Goblinland 10 years ago, on that ill faring which, had I been king, I never had agreed to, when Brandok de Har took him prisoner on Lomerun field, and despitefully used him, stripped him stark naked, shaved him all of one side smooth as a tennis ball, and painted him yellow, and sent him home with mickle shame to Witchland. Hell devour me, but I think his heart is in this enterprise. I think thou'lt see brave doings in Demonland when he comes thither. Still Gro was silent, and the king said after a while, I have given thee reasons enow, I think, why I send Corsus into Demonland. There is yet this other, that by itself weigheth not one doit, yet with the others beareth down the balance, if more thou lookest for. Unto mine other servants great tasks have I given, and great rewards. To Corund Impland and a king's crown therefore, to Laxus the like in Pixieland, to thee by anticipation Goblinland, for so I do intend. But this old hunting dog of mine sitteth yet in's kennel, with ne'er a bone to busy his teeth withal. That is not well, and shall no longer be neither, since there's no reason for it. Lord, said Gro, in all argument and wise prevision you have quite o'erset me. Yet my heart misgives me. You would ride to Galing. You have ta'en an horse therefore, with never a star in's forehead. Instead I see there is a cloud in's face, and such prove commonly furious, dogged, full of mischief and misfortune. They came down now upon the way of kings. Westward before them lay the marshes, with the great bulk of Carse 8 or 10 miles distant, their chiefest landmark, and the towers of Tenemos breaking the level horizon line beyond it. The king, after a long silence, looked down on Gro. His lean rugged countenance was outlined darkly against the sky, terrible and proud. Thou too, said he, shalt be in this faring to Demonland. Laxus shall have sway afloat, since that is his element of water. Galandus shall be secretary to Corsus, and thou shalt be with them in their councils. But the main command, as I have decreed, lieth in Corsus, I'll not crop his authority, no, not by an hair's breadth. Sith Jus hath called the main, I will go hazard with Corsus. If I throw out with him, hell rot him for a false die. But 'tis not such a cast shall cast away all my fortune. I have a langret in my purse shall crossbite for me i' the end, and win me all, howsoe'er the demon's cog against me. So ended that day's sporting, and that day, and the next, and near a month thereafter, was the Duke Corsus busied up and down the land preparing his great armament. And on the 15th day of July was the fleet busked and bound in Tenemus roads, and that great army of 5,000 men-at-arms, with horses and all instruments of war, marched from their camp without Carse down to the sea. First of them went Laxus with his guard of mariners, he wearing the crown of Pixieland, and they loudly acclaiming him as king, and Geraes of Witchland as his overlord. A gallant man he seemed, ready-looking and hard, well armed, with open countenance and bright seaman's eyes, and brown crisp curly beard and hair. Next came the main foot army, heavy armed with axe and spear and the short Witchland hanger, yeomen and farmers from the lowlands about Carse, or from the southern vineyards, or the hill country against Pixieland. Burly, swashing fellows, rough as bears, hardy as wild oxen, agile as an ape. 4,000 fighting men, chose out by Corsus up and down the land as best for this great conquest. The sons of Corsus, Decalagius and Gorius, rode abreast before them with 20 pipers piping a battle-song. Surely the tramp of that great army on the paven way was like the tramp of fate moving from the east. Geraes the king, sitting in state on the battlements above the water-gate, sniffed with his nostrils as a lion at the scent of blood. It was early morn, and the wind hung southerly, and the great banners, blue and green and purple and gold, each with an iron crab displayed above it, flaunted in the sun. Now came 4 or 5 companies of horse, 400 or more in all, with brazen armour, and bucklers and glancing spears, and last of all Corsus himself, with his picked legion of 500 veterans to bring up the rear, fierce soldiers of the coastlands that followed him of old to the eastern main and goblin land, and had stood beside him in the great days when he smote the ghouls in Witchland. On Corsus's left and right, a little behind him, rode Gro and Galandus. Ruddy of countenance was Galandus, gay of carriage and lightly looking, long of limb, with long brown mustachios and large kind eyes like a dog. Presmira stood beside the king, and with her the ladies Zenambria and Sriva, watching the long column marching toward the sea. Hemming the son of Corund leaned on the battlements. Beside him stood Corineus, scornful-lipped, with folded arms, most glorious in holiday attire, a wreath of dwale about his brows, and wearing on his mighty breast the gold badge of the king's captain-general in Carse. Corsus, as he rode by beneath them, planted on the point of his sword his great helm of bronze, plumed with green-dyed estridge plumes, and raised it high above his head in homage to the king. The sparse grey locks of his hair lifted in the breeze, and pride flamed on the heavy face of him like a November sunset. He rode a dark bay, heavily built like a bear, that stepped ponderously as weighed down by his rider's bulk and the great weight of gear and battle-harness. His veterans, marching at his heel, lifted their helms on spear and sword and bill, singing their old marching song in time to the clank of their mailed feet marching down the way of kings. When Corsus dwelt at Tenemus, beside the sea in Tenemus, tira-lira-lay, the ghouls came down to Tenemus, they brent his house in Tenemus, down derry down day. But Corsus carved the ghouls, the Corsus meat they e'er did eat, he made him garters with their bowels, when he came home to Tenemus, came home again to Tenemus, with a roundelay. The king held aloft his staff royal, returning Corsus his salute, and all Carse shouted from the walls. In such wise rode the Lord Corsus down to the ships with his great army, that should bring bale and woe to Demon Land. End of chapter 17.